Hello.
Hi.
Can you introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Yoko Tsuyuki. I'm 92 years old. I'm your grandma.
I'm Nina Tsuyuki Dubik. This is my family. On my mother's side, I'm third generation Japanese Canadian, and on my father's side, I'm third generation Ukrainian Canadian. This is my grandfather and grandmother, Shigeru and Yoko Tsuyuki. Growing up, I'd always heard stories about my great-great-grandfather and how he'd moved to Canada from Japan as a remittance man. I also knew that while my grandfather had grown up in Japan, he was actually born in Canada. While I was aware of these things, I didn't know many details and was therefore interested to learn more about my great-great-grandfather and grandfather and their experiences in moving to Canada from Japan. In addition, I was also interested in my grandmother's experiences, since unlike my grandfather, who already had family in Canada when he moved here in his 20s, my grandmother was the first in her family to move to Canada from Japan. The following is an interview I did with her to find out more about her life in Japan and her experience moving to Canada.
So, where were you born?
I was born in Matsudo, Chiba, in Japan.
And where was your family from? Were they also from Chiba?
Oh, no. My father was from Kyushu, and my mom is from Kanagawa.
What did your mom and your dad do, for work?
Oh, my mother never works, just a housewife.
Housewife?
Uh-huh. And my father was a military officer.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes.
So, who were your siblings?
My brother, big brother, Toshiaki, and I had my young brother, Hiroshi.
What did your brothers do? What were their jobs?
Oh, my brother was a military officer. He went to Yonen Gakko, that military
school?
So yes. And he finished, then war ended.
That was your older brother?
Yes.
Okay, so what did your younger brother do for a job?
Insurance company. He works in insurance company.
So what was your schooling like?
My schooling?
Yeah, what kind of education did you do?
Oh, from grade 1 to 6.
6?
Yeah.
Elementary
and
school.
From 7, that we call that high school. Mm-hmm. High school, and after finished high school, I went 1 year to learning how to sewing company, not company, school. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you do after you finished the 1 year at the sewing school?
I have a friend. She said she's going to go to work for the Fujifilm company. So why don't you come? So, okay. So I went, yeah. And I was a lab technician for that making films.
How long did you work at Fujifilm?
So about 8 to 9 years. Yeah.
Did you like working there? So how did you meet Oji-chan, your husband?
Oh, he was working there too. Yeah, so we met.
So when did you come to Canada from Japan then?
Yeah. 1955 or 6? Oh, yeah. But Oji-chan came before.
Yeah, Oji-chan was born in Canada, right?
Yes, yeah. And our family went back to Japan during that, America war.
The Second World War?
Yeah.
So you came to Canada because Ji-chan wanted to go to Canada.
Uh-huh.
What did you think of Canada when you first came?
Oh, I was so sad. Why did I come here? And, even when I came Hikawamaru, that big boat.
Big boat, yeah.
Yeah. And my younger brother said, "Onesan, if it's too hard, we send you money, so come back." So but I don't want to say anything to anybody, so I just cry in bed about 1 year here.
So you came in the winter, right? March?
March.
March, yeah.
Beginning of March.
So it wasn't very nice weather.
No. And in Japan,
Mhm.
when you go to work like a Fujifilm, they dress up to go there. And they change to work coat, like a lab coat or something. But here, I was so shocked to see everybody is going to work for that. Work clothes. Not dirty.
They didn't wear as nice clothing, so it was a culture shock.
And obento, this black and something like that. Oh, I thought, wow, why did I come here in this country? Because I worked, I was happy in the working film.
Did you eventually get used to Canada?
Yes.
How long would you say it took for you to...
3-4 years.
But Ji-chan had a really good time.
I think so.
Did he go hunting a lot?
Yeah, he had a friend. What's the name? You don't know, but Kon-chan knows. Your mother knows. Yeah, I think he's English, and both very nice and little older than us. He goes to hunting or fishing, and I hear you know that Yamada family Kyoba. You hear that the Kyoba-chan. Yeah. We went to fishing, and Kyoba-chan and husband, what's the name? Nobuo? Yeah.
Did you know other Japanese families in Canada?
Yes, yeah. First I came to Winnipeg in the Shimozawa family, that Oji-chan's parent friends. So we stayed their house, I think a week. And then I get, what's the name? I forgot this lady's. We went to this lady's Miyata house. Yeah, upstairs. Yeah.
So why did you decide to come to like Manitoba specifically? Because you came to BC first, right?
BC because Oji-chan's family knows somebody there.
In BC?
Uh-huh.
And then, so why did you come to Manitoba?
Gee, I don't know why. Oh, maybe because they're a farmer. I think Oji-chan doesn't want to be farmer. So
he didn't want to stay with his family in BC?
Yes. So we came here.
Because Ji-chan's family did farming in Japan, right?
Yes, yeah.
So when you came to Canada, what kind of job did you do?
I went to, what's the name?
Making clothing?
Yes. Because I started very early because everybody said it's good learn English if you go out to,
So did you speak any English when you came to Canada?
No. Like, yes, I went to some
Did you take any in school in Japan?
Yes, yes.
But not very...
Not all, no.
So did you take lessons in Canada?
Yeah, I went to night school, English school, yeah.
And how was Oji-chan's English?
Oh, he was better than me because he was here 4 years before
you
me.
Came.
Yeah.
While my grandfather passed away in 2011, I was able to learn more about his life and his side of the family from my grandmother and mother. The following is what I learned from them about the Tsuyukis and their experiences in moving to Canada from Japan. The first person in my family to move to Canada from Japan was my great-great-grandfather, Jisaburo Tsuyuki. A gambling addict, Jisaburo moved to Canada from Japan in the late 1800s as a remittance man so that he wouldn't gamble away his family's property. He eventually settled down in Ocean Falls, BC, where he got married and had children. He eventually sent his children back to Japan so they could attend school there, a pattern that my great-grandfather would also eventually follow. Much like Jisaburo's children, my grandfather, Shigeru Tsuyuki, was also born in Ocean Falls, BC. He moved to Japan when he was 4 years old. In Japan, he lived in Takematsu, a small town near Odawara, Kanagawa Prefecture. His family in Japan were farmers. Since he had been born in Canada, he had dual Japanese-Canadian citizenship. However, he gave up his Japanese citizenship when he became an adult. This was likely motivated by the fact that he was the second oldest and would not inherit his family's farmland. Additionally, as an avid hunter and fisher, the idea of Canada's large forests and wildlife appealed to him. He moved back to Canada when he was 21. There he lived with relatives in Vancouver for a few years before eventually moving to Winnipeg, Manitoba, which was where his family friends, the Shimozawas, also lived. After 7 years of living in Canada, working at a window manufacturing plant, in 1957 he returned to Japan where he married my grandmother, Yoko Ikari, before returning to Canada with her. Once in Canada, my grandparents had 2 children, my mom, Debbie Tsuyuki, and my uncle, Mikio Tsuyuki. Unlike previous children in my grandfather's family, his children were raised in Canada instead of being sent back to Japan. After interviewing my grandmother, I was a bit interested to learn more about my family once they had already lived in Canada for a while, so I decided to interview my mother, Debbie Tsuyuki, to find out a bit more about her childhood and experience as a second-generation Japanese Canadian.
Okay, hello. Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Deborah Kozoe Tsuyuki, also known as Debbie or Konchan, and I'm 57 years old.
Okay, so your parents were Yoko and Shigeru Tsuyuki, correct?
That's correct.
So, when you were born, how long had your parents been living in Canada already?
Well, my father came in 1950, and in 1957, he went back to Japan, married my mother, and so they were in Canada for 6 years together before I was born.
Would you say that when you were born, your parents spoke, English predominantly, or did they still speak mostly Japanese?
In our house, we spoke only Japanese, and I did not learn English until I started going to school.
Outside of your house, did your parents speak English, or were they still learning?
No, by the time that I came along, they had finished taking night courses in English and were reasonably fluent. And so in their everyday conversations with people, it was predominantly English.
So do you speak and read Japanese now?
No, I don't. I was of that generation that was post-war, and the Japanese community had sort of collectively made the decision that it was not good to bring attention to our difference by encouraging Japanese language schools and things like that. And so outside of speaking in the house, I did not have the opportunity to go to any Japanese school or learn conversation that way.
Okay, so would you say despite that, did your parents make any sort of effort to expose you to Japanese culture?
Well, we did a lot of Japanese sort of activities. My mother was very much into the Japanese arts of tea ceremony and also flower arranging, so she taught me those things. We were encouraged to take Japanese martial arts, so my brother and I took up kendo when there was a Winnipeg Kendo Club. And we also celebrated New Year's and New Year's Eve with things like toshikoshi soba and ozoni for New Year's. And so in that sense, we did do some things Japanese. And when I was 8 years old, we actually went to Japan as a family and visited.
So, what did you think of Japan when you visited?
I love Japan, and from that moment on, I spent all my waking hours plotting how to get back.
So you still do ikebana today. Is your mother the one who taught you? Or did you ever take any other lessons?
I took lessons actually at the Japanese Cultural Center from Mrs. Suzuki.
How old were you?
I was probably in my early 20s at that time, but I already had all the dogu from my mother.
Okay, so could you describe where did you grow up, and can you describe the neighborhood where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in North Kildonan in Winnipeg. The neighborhood was predominantly either Ukrainian people or people of Ukrainian descent or Mennonite people. There were no other people of color except maybe 2 or 3 other Japanese families, but they did not have children of my age. And so I did not actually go to school with any other Japanese kids.
So would you say that you were bullied at school for being Japanese Canadian?
I did not really think of it as bullying at that time, but I guess now in today's definition it would be considered bullying because sometimes after school kids would gang up on me and scream Pearl Harbor at me, which at that time really meant nothing to me. This was an American event that happened long, long before my birth. And so it just seemed to me to be sort of silly. And as long as they didn't physically abuse me, I didn't really care.
So you said previously that you really liked Japan when you visited and wanted to go back. Would you say that you regret still living in Canada to this day, or would you prefer living in Canada to Japan?
Oh no, I think I'd much rather live in Canada. Canada has much more opportunities for women. I think Japan is a lovely place to visit, and I very much look forward to when I can visit. But I don't know that I would want to live there. I'm far too independent and outspoken.
Okay, so you, when you grew up, you married Don Dubik, who is Ukrainian. Did your parents have any problems with that?
They did not. They said quite openly that having made the decision to immigrate to Canada, it was no longer reasonable for them to expect me to marry a Japanese person.
So did you face any challenges as an interracial couple?
Well, my husband's family didn't really accept our marriage until the day of our wedding. We weren't really sure if they were going to come for sure. Since then, they've really come around and accepted it and have certainly accepted our children.
So do you have any sort of differences or interesting things you'd say about living in a multicultural family?
Well, we tried to expose our children to both languages, both Ukrainian and Japanese, to varying success. And we have tried to incorporate our cultural aspects. So, for example, on Christmas Eve, we have the 12 meatless dishes of the Ukrainian tradition. And then on Christmas Day, we have a turkey or some similar sort of Canadian thing. And then for New Year's Eve, we have toshikushi soba, which is a Japanese thing. And New Year's Day is usually a Japanese meal of traditional sort of New Year's foods. And for that event, my husband's family are invited. So even though they have not had this as their tradition, they have the opportunity to observe these traditional things.
So you'd say it's sort of like sharing cultures and whatnot?
Yes, I think sharing cultures is important.
This has been a brief history of the Tsuyukis going back from Jisaburo Tsuyuki in the 1800s to Debbie Tsuyuki in the present day. I'd like to thank my grandmother and mother for appearing in interviews and helping me with my research for this film.